Good morning, everybody that's just joining us. Thank you for joining us this morning. We will be underway in just a few minutes' time. But first of all, if you can just pop in the chat that you can see and hear me, that'd be a really good start for us this morning. Tell us where you are. And here in North Norfolk, it's very, very windy and very wet. So I hope the weather is better with you wherever you are. We've got a thumbs up, so obviously everybody can hear me, which is excellent. Bournemouth, thank you, Nikki. Yeah, got it. Everything's good in Cheltenham. So where else? All Dublin. Great stuff. Pouring in Scotland. Nothing new there. Right, excellent. So glad everyone can hear us okay, and thank you everyone for the comments. So really glad you could join us this morning for what I have no doubt is going to be a really entertaining and informative session. We are going to talk about admin, the pains of admin, and how we can help you think about saving time through use of technology, and a bunch of other things that we just think are going to be useful for you in terms of thinking about how you overcome this challenge that happens to many firms, getting bogged down in administrative tasks and so on. But let's get underway. Let's get introductions and things done. For those that don't know me, my name is Will Farnell. I'm founder of Farnell Clark, an accounting firm based in Norfolk. We are about 64 people now. My firm was one of the very first firms to fully adopt cloud technology back in 2009. And about 2 years ago, I co-founded App Advisory Plus, and our mission at App Advisory Plus is to help accountancy firms generate new revenue out of app advisory, and at the same time help your clients run smarter businesses with technology. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Jonathan Stobart. I know Jonathan really, really well, and delighted that he's able to join us for this session this morning. Jonathan, do you want to just give people a quick introduction to who you are, please?
Yeah, thanks, Will, and thanks for the opportunity to come onto the session this morning. Good morning, everybody. So as Will said, I'm Jonathan Stobart. I am the Head of Marketing and Strategic Partnerships at AccountancyManager. So I suppose my role here at AccountancyManager is to increase brand awareness of AccountancyManager, and I suppose just try and get our brand and our message out to the accountancy industry. The reason for today's session is, I suppose, it's kind of come off the back of conversations I was having with accountants at Accountex North and Digital Accountancy Show recently, where we kind of say, Accountancy Manager automates your admin. And people were saying to us, well, what does that actually mean? Which bits of admin are you describing there when you're saying you can automate it? And I hope in today's session we'll break that down a little bit further for people to kind of put a bit more meat on the bones into what we actually do and what we see as good ways of working in accountancy practice. As a bit of background to myself, I was in practice for 9 years before I joined Accountancy Manager as a marketing and BD manager at a large regional firm in the Midlands. So the accounting industry is something that I've worked in for my career thus far. So it's something I like to feel like I know a little bit about.
Excellent. Thank you, Jonathan. And certainly your experience of having been inside accounting firms as well is one of the reasons I'm really excited that you're with us today, because you've got perspectives from kind of both sides of the fence. So it's going to be, and there's a non-accountant in an accounting firm as well, which I think is really, really valuable. So what are we going to cover for you during this session? So in terms of logistics, we have about 45 minutes. Obviously, depends on how many questions you guys want to ask us. I would really encourage you to ask questions. These sessions are so much more valuable if we get some interaction from you. So do use the Q&A box for questions, so we make sure we don't miss any. We'll get to as many as we can. If you've got general comments, observations, the chat box is there for you to use as well. You don't have to agree with everything we say, so do challenge if you think we're barking up the wrong tree. But 45 minutes, so we'll have you all done by 11:15 and back onto your day. So we've done some introductions. I'm going to ask Jonathan to kind of introduce us to Accountancy Manager in a moment. And then once we've done that, we're going to go through a few topics that I hope will be interesting. Firstly, Jonathan and I are going to talk about what we see in accountancy firms, where the challenges are with firm admin. We're then going to talk about some experiences that both I've got from first-hand experience of running my accounting firm, but also from the work that I do with other accounting firms, helping them think about how they grow and scale their firms. And one of the big things there is actually finding ways to let go of things that they don't need to be doing. So we're going to share some experiences, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. And the ugly comes from my own experiences normally. Talking about letting go. So once we know what we need to do, how can we let go? What do we let go of? And how can we use technology smartly to really automate what we do to let us get free of those admin burdens? And once we've done it, what are the benefits? So what are the benefits to you in your accounting firm of using technology to automate some of this stuff? So we're both going to share experiences around those, which we hope will be really useful, and plenty of Q&A. If I get some questions that are relevant to things we're talking about as we go through, we'll pick those up as we go. So do pop those questions into the Q&A box for us. So Jonathan, for anybody that's been hiding under a rock for a while, can you give us a quick intro to AccountancyManager, who you are and what you do before we get into our topic?
Yeah, certainly. So AccountancyManager is onboarding and practice management software. So what does onboarding and practice management software actually do? It enables you to, I suppose, onboard your prospects into clients efficiently within the system. We've got inbuilt list engagement, and you can send out proposal emails to prospects. Prospects can, of course, then accept those proposals within the system. They then get added onto your client list. You can manage your client list within the system. We've got an integration with Companies House, so that any new clients that you onboard onto the system, their filing deadlines are then pulled through to AccountancyManager, and then the associated tasks are then created. That populates task list. Task list is kind of like your home page for AccountancyManager, tells you what you and your team have got to kind of do in a day. Big aspect of AccountancyManager would be the automated features that we've got, where you can chase clients for wide variety of things, to be honest with you. Well, books and records is a classic one. I quite like professional clearance. You can automate the system to chase the previous account of professional clearance. A nice feature that a lot of people really like is the client portal. So you can upload documents to the client portal for your prospects or your clients to obviously access and download. And I suppose ultimately it really is the foundation you practice. It helps you communicate with clients, and it helps you introduce better working processes.
Great. Excellent. Thank you for that, Jonathan. And we're starting to get questions coming already, so we'll jump on those very, very soon. And we've got listening in the background as well. Hopefully, Liston can see some of those Q&A questions, because there's a couple there already. I think that he will be able to answer. So Liston, do dive in and type some answers in there if you can. So Jonathan, let's get on to the topic. So you and I both see inside lots of accounting firms, given the role that we do. And certainly from where I sit, I see lots of accounting firms and often accounting firm owners that are still really bogged down doing stuff that they probably shouldn't be doing, particularly in terms of admin. And I mentioned in the kind of introduction to the session, we'll be covering the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'm kind of very happy to kick off with some of the ugly in terms of practical examples of where firm owners really struggle to kind of let go of stuff that they shouldn't be doing. And the example that I can throw in to kick off the conversation is that my firm now is about 64 people. And up until about 4 years ago, there was one thing in the firm that I hung on to dearly. And we were probably, 35 people at the time. And I opened the post. So every morning I'd get the post, and we were looking after kind of, 1,000 clients. So we got a lot of posts, and I'd sit there and I'd open the post. And it was almost about kind of, it gave me that control. It gave me that visibility of everything that was going on in the business. And arguably it was before we'd got to the point where we were scanning documents and we had greater visibility. But I think it's just a great example of firm owners not being prepared to let go of things that are time consuming add little value to the practice. I'm sure you've seen loads more examples. Any spring to mind?
Well, I suppose just to build on your point there, that is a classic example how I think sometimes when we talk to accountants, they don't realise. So the challenge of admin, it's a threat to the business. When we're talking about, okay, we've got our practice and what are the threats? We talk about competitors, we talk about potential, accounting software taking away our jobs, but we don't sit down and actually look at our working processes. Whereas actually, admin can hold back the practice. And Will, the example you're giving there, where you're still opening the post on a daily basis to have a look at that. I suppose with the beauty of hindsight, now you're looking back at it and going, you know what, I should have stepped back. I should have looked at this process and said, actually, do I still need to do this? Do I still need to actually physically sit down and do this myself? Well, obviously the answer is no. Well, that is one example where, of course, there's numerous examples that we hear of almost on a daily basis from our users. So I'm fortunate, I do all the case studies for AccountancyManager. So I sit down on a weekly basis with accountants, talk to them about the impact that the system's had on their practice. Now, for me, a classic would be chasing clients for books and records. Accountants would talk about how they would send, say they've got the portfolio of clients and they're having to chase each client, say 2, 3, 4 times for their books and records. You're starting to talk about hundreds and hundreds of emails that somebody is sitting down and actually writing out themselves to say, dear Mr. Client, please send me your books and records. Well, of course, these days, there's software that enables you to do that. And I suppose the big challenge of admin is that you don't see it as a challenge. And I suppose sometimes we don't appreciate now there is technology out there to eliminate certain aspects of your day. So, because a human no longer needs to do things, particularly opening the post, sending letters, emails, chasing for books and records, or chasing for letters of engagement to get signed off. It's so inefficient, and of course, time is money. Time is everything to accountants. I think if we can start to look at the way that we work and start to look for better, more efficient ways of working, we're going to give ourselves more time and give ourselves a more profitable firm.
Yeah, I think people that have heard me speak before know that I bang on consistently about the importance of client experience, and client experience is the way that I define client experience is it's a sum total of the touch points that you have with a client from the point that you first speak to them to the point at which they move on or whatever. So we're accountants, so we understand the concept of sums. So if we want greater client experience, we increase the number of touch points we have with a client. Now, given what we're talking about here, that could then fall into, but actually then are we not creating additional kind of admin by saying, well, we need to kind of have touch points with clients more regularly? But the point is, it's about automating those, isn't it? Without diluting and losing the humanistic impact to what we're trying to do there, because it's really important we remain human, but it's about making sure that we use technology in the best possible way to focus on the things that are important to us. And I talk to firms about the fact that it's really easy to grow an accounting firm. It's much harder to scale an accounting firm. And this is where we need to think about what are the things that we need to do that enable us to scale effectively. So it's almost thinking about those kind of touch points. What can we automate without losing that humanistic element? And it's really easy to make emails humanistic, even if they're automated, isn't it?
Absolutely. Now, it's a really interesting point that you've picked up on there, because that's sometimes is a challenge that we get back from prospects, and that's they don't want to use automated features because they're going to lose that human element, and it's all part of the client experience. Well, actually, what I hear from users that have implemented automated features and they say they're a year down the line of seeing the benefits, is that the client never actually benefits, or the client relationship never benefits from you sending them an email to say, please send me your books and records. The client relationship benefits from you sitting down and learning more about their business, learning more about their, not just their strategic goals for the business, but also their personal aspirations. And if you are eliminating the time out of your day where you're sending things like chaser emails, that's only going to give you more time to do better quality, better value service delivery back to that client.
Yeah.
So, so yes, you can personalize automated emails. So to be honest with you, I would say I probably wouldn't bother. Yes, to change it to your tone, but very often we hear users say to us that their clients know they're automated emails and they don't care, to be honest with you. It just helps the client know they've got to send in whatever information it is at the right time. Just helps them deliver a better service, and they're not bothered if it's Accountancy Manager or if it's the accountant sitting down to write that email.
Yeah, so I think you've just answered the question there, haven't you? That we've just had in from Emma saying, can you personalize the admin chasing letters so clients feel they are not receiving a default letter? And the answer to that, Emma, is yes, you can. So certainly get your, as Jonathan said, get your tone of voice in there, get your kind of brand messaging and so on into those templates. But as Jonathan also points out, you might be surprised. As accountants, one of the things that I see regularly is our own mindsets are what stop us doing really great things for our clients, because we have preconceptions about what we think a client is going to think, if that makes some sense. And we become a barrier to changing things for our clients because we think we know what they want. And I was very guilty of this as I was growing my firm, in terms of making assumptions about what I thought clients would buy and want to buy. And it meant that I didn't talk to them about all the great things that we could do for them, because in my head, I'd already decided they didn't want them anyway. So we have to kind of free up our minds. And on the point of chasing, this is where the opportunities to think about the services that we deliver. How do we educate our clients to help us have less admin? So the whole topic of chasing, we generally don't chase clients in our firm, for certainly our business clients, because we've got them into good habits of using technology tools to get data to us. So we're DEX users in Farnell Clark, and DEX gives us what they call a delayed day index that tells us how quickly we get records from clients from the point they spend the money. And we average about 5 or 6 days from our clients, from the point they spend money to the point that they send us the receipt. So if you can educate your clients, that in turn is using technology to help you educate your clients, to save you having to do admin work that adds little value.
And this is it, isn't it, Will? Is that the clients are already getting used to using systems like DEX as part of the service delivery. And we're just expanding the use of technology across all areas of the service. I really do believe it's the modern way of working. It's almost like a bit of a change in mentality. I appreciate that, and that we have to kind of relinquish that sort of control and appreciate that we're not going to always do things the way we've always have done, because we're always going to get what we've always got. So now we need to change it. Oh, okay. Clients have already shown us that they like using DEX, they like using Xero, QuickBooks, whichever software it is. Okay, so now we're just going to continue that sort of mentality across the practice.
Yeah, and one of the things, I mean, we're jumping around here with the topics that we're going to talk about, but I feel that it's a great conversation. So visibility. So based on what you see with accounting firms, I mean, one of the challenges that I see with firms that haven't gone through the process of putting in place kind of robust practice management solutions, and they're using spreadsheets or whatever, is we have a real lack of visibility of what's going on within an accounting firm in terms of workflows and client engagements and so on. I mean, have you got any, in terms of the good, the bad, and the ugly, any kind of good experiences of what firms have seen with that increased visibility?
Absolutely. So let's talk about task list, for instance. So good examples is where everybody's got a license, log into obviously Accountancy Manager, and the team utilize Accountancy Manager and the task list to as I suppose the discussion point for planning their work for that week. So I hear about directors sitting down with the team and saying, okay, so let's have a look at the task list. What deadlines have we got coming up? They might utilize our target dates feature as well to set their own internal deadlines for certain tasks. And I think that's where they really can get a lot of power from the system. That's where members of the team can maybe shout up and say, actually, if you have a look at my task list, I've got too much on here, and therefore then tasks can be reassigned to another member of the team. And yeah, it really is a discussion point because the director gets that complete visibility. I suppose the bads is of course where maybe they're not utilising the task list to its full potential, or they're perhaps not, maybe only the practice manager or the directors utilise an accountancy manager, and the team don't know what's coming up. And then we find that, I hear situations where people still have their own paper to-do lists, which is of course a classic way we've always worked for years and years. I'm sure to an extent we'll probably always have a to-do list on paper somewhere, but that's where there's no control over that. There's no sharing that information, and that's where members of the team can then feel uncomfortable kind of raising this and saying, "Oh, actually, I've got too much on," because then they have to voluntarily give you that information. Whereas if visibility is good and everything's already on the task list and the director can already see that, then there's no shouting up about it. It's there for everybody to see, and then that's when you can really share the workload, I think, in a more effective way.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's there's a big cultural piece here, isn't as well, in terms of I talk regularly about kind of the blend of people, process, and technology. So that kind of triangle and getting the balance right, because it's no good having great technology if you've got people that won't use it, can't use it, don't want to use it. So we've got to kind of win the hearts and minds, and certainly talking to accounting firms. Because of the kind of type of people we are, we often are resistant to change, and I'm stereotyping here, so apologies for those that like me relish change. But broadly, we see certainly people working in accounting firms are reluctant to change. But what I'd say to everybody listening here is that the one common denominator in every firm that I've worked with is that every single person in that accounting firm really cares about the client. And it's kind of something that's built into our DNA as accountants, that we really care, often to our own detriment. So we do things, we make decisions that are absolutely in the interest of the client, but often aren't in our interests. So if we accept that in an accounting firm, everybody cares about the client, when we start talking about change, we have to focus the fact that the change is about doing better by the client. So it's not about changing technology. It's not about changing technology for the sake of bringing in technology. It's about how is this change going to benefit our clients? And if we focus on that, you're going to win the minds of the people in your accounting firm. Go on, Jonathan. You got
sorry to interrupt, Will, but I suppose in my experience and talking to AM users as well, the way to, I suppose, ease that implementation process is getting the staff involved in the process early doors, kind of show them the options. There's going to be a time when you're going to look at practice management software, you're going to sit down, you're going to have a look at the Accountancy Manager website, you're probably going to have a listen to one of the webinars that we do, or have a look at a demo. Involve the team in that process, because it's much better to be able to say to them, look guys, this is what I'm thinking and this is the reason for it, than coming at, I suppose a month down the line saying, this is what we're doing, here you go, you've got to use that. Then that's when they feel resistant to change. Whereas if they're involved in the process, then they can embrace it a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, great. So we're getting a few questions pop in that I think listeners working brilliantly in the background doing this. A couple of questions around things like can we show how to do stuff within the system? I'm sure, Jonathan, that you or the team will be very happy to jump on calls with people if they've got particular things that they want to kind of get help with and understand. And I think listeners probably picking up quite a few of those anyway. So keep those questions coming in. For a few people that have joined us later, we've got Liston in the background, who's one of the technical guys from AccountancyManager, so he's frantically answering away some technical questions, but keep questions coming in if you've got any comments, observations on the things we're talking about here, in terms of what challenges are you facing in your accounting firms in terms of getting a better handle on admin, using technology to automate more of what you do in your firm. Keep those coming in, and we'll pick those topics up as we head towards 11:15. So Jonathan, we've talked about kind of some of the challenges. We've talked about kind of a couple of experiences that we've seen, both kind of challenging ones and slightly more positive ones where people are coming through the other side. I mentioned right at the beginning that the big challenge I see for lots of firm owners is being prepared to let go. I was a control freak. I'm sure there's plenty of other people on here that try and delegate stuff and it takes too long, and they just think, oh, I'll just do it myself, because it's far quicker to do it myself than get somebody else to do it. It limits the ability for firms to grow and scale. So I think in terms of me sharing to people on the audience here, you've got a couple of options. Either you've got to delegate. So you've got to think about the things that only you can do. So rather than think about the things that you can delegate, think about the things that you can't delegate, and almost make a list of those things that only you can do. As somebody senior in the firm, as a practice owner, what are the things that only you can do? Because everything else you can delegate. But then we've got to start to think about, how do we use technology to help us let go of some of that stuff? And Jonathan, you and I talked about kind of thinking about process, mapping process, and looking for opportunities where technology can take over some of those steps in our processes. Do you have an approach that you kind of share with firms, or how much of the work has kind of been done for them within Accountancy Manager already?
So when we're talking to new prospects and we're talking to them about functionality, we're kind of working through the system and talking to them about each area of their practice. For instance, onboarding, we're saying, okay, so what are you currently doing for onboarding? Oh, I'm printing letters, I'm sending letters in the post, I'm asking for a signed copy to come back, I'm asking them to hold them to a signed copy themselves. And that's where we kind of challenge their current working process and say, actually, this is the way the system works. You can send them one email, they can click to sign the email within Accountancy Manager, and then they get served a letters engagement in the system as well, which they can just accept. Again, it's the same for the task list or automated features, or perhaps it's how do you send actually a set of accounts to a client and ask them to sign it off. Of course, in AM, we've got a client portal and e-signatures. So we're just trying to challenge these processes and making them think about how they currently do various different aspects, and saying, does a human still need to do that? And often we would say, actually, the answer is no. And I suppose that why are you trying to do that? It is because practice management is the foundation of your practice. You're trying to introduce better working processes that are streamlining your admin, going to eliminate give you more time back in the day, and deliver better service to clients. You mentioned earlier about what are some of the good things that people are doing, and there's lots of obviously good examples, but I suppose that one of the biggest benefits, or I suppose one of the best things I see users doing, is introducing the system so that it conforms the rest of the way their firm operates. And very often do I hear about prospects, and then they say they use Xero, they use Dex, they use QuickBooks. The service that they're offering to clients is really forward thinking, and it's utilising all the latest technology. But then actually how they actually run their own practice using a spreadsheet. And the two don't marry up really. So of course, what we're trying to do, the good examples is when your service delivery is as slick as your practice management, and the two are utilising technology to the benefits of not just your firm, but also your clients.
That's a really good point, Jonathan. I'll just kind of expand on that, because I talk about accounting firm evolution, and we started way back in kind of 2008, 2009, and we were badged and online accountants, and it was kind of almost a derogatory term. And we moved through what then became cloud accounting, and then moved to what I call a digital firm. And I think your point there is absolutely spot on. And what I see lots of firms doing is they're aiming for the wrong target. So they're looking at this and saying, we should be cloud accountants. And what they're doing is they're going out and they're using tools like Xero and QuickBooks and Sage Cloud and so on. And they're being cloud accountants. They're not being a digital firm. And the digital firm is the extension of that stuff internally, and starting to think about, well, how do we use technology internally? How do we build a digital culture within our accounting firm? And your point there is exactly that. It's that mismatch. And it may just be that it's kind of education, and people haven't yet recognized what a digital firm actually means and what it means to be a digital firm. And people like you guys at AccountancyManager are really well placed to help firms understand that. So that's a really good point, that it's no good just focusing externally. We've got to focus internally as well.
And it's all about using the right technology. So when you were talking about being a digital firm, yes, we are looking to utilize technology for the benefit of the practice and the clients. But what technology as well, and making sure that you're using the right technology for your practice. I think about brand loyalty to some accounting software providers, and now we would always say use the best of breed in each area of software that you invest in. Pick the best aspect or the best product in that market. Now, I suppose, particularly with practice management, it can be a bolt-on to other pieces of other larger software providers, but you wouldn't, like, for something that's so fundamental for your business, you want to obviously make sure you're opting for a solution that is solely practice management, that is looking at this as a solution, thinking how can we make this the best that it possibly can be. Whereas, you wouldn't trust your whole practice to a bolt-on, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. So let's talk about the benefits. So you do lots of case studies. So you've got firms that are talking about the real benefits that they've seen and benefited from tech adoption. So obvious ones are clearly less time focused on these admin tasks and so on. But that's fine. But what about big picture? What are the really significant kind of life-changing benefits that firms are getting out of using technology more effectively?
I think that it is scalable as well. So we've touched on being scalable a couple of times, but when you've got your processes, your admins that streamlined into a way that you almost don't have to think about this, and it's not a challenge to the business, it's not a burden. That's when you can start to build on the practice. Maybe you can take on new clients. So but again, talk to prospects, talk to users, and they talk about a time when they get a new inquiry, and it's almost like, oh no, I've got new clients, now we have to go through the onboarding process, and that's such a pain, and that's such a negative approach. And in today's way of working, we don't have to have that mentality, because there are solutions out there that can streamline, that can help you then build your business.
Yeah.
Now we've touched on the time. Now the time gives you everything, doesn't it? It gives you the ability to be able to, maybe it's expand the business, maybe it's work on the business, maybe have a look at new service lines that you might want to introduce. Maybe it's just actually talking to your clients a little bit more, getting to know them a little bit, I suppose, more on a personal level, to be able to deliver both that personal as well as the business advice. Or maybe it's just readjusting the work-life balance. I quite like hearing the stories about users where they just, they don't have to work 9 to 5 every day. I think I hear lots of stories about AccountancyManager users that kind of set up their own practice, thinking they were in a larger firm before. They were working 9 to 5, maybe into the evening, sometimes maybe working weekends. So they decided to set their own practice because they thought it was going to be easy. And then before they knew it, it was a nightmare, and they were working even harder than they were before. Yep. Until they start to implement solutions like ourselves, like Xero, like Dex, like the forward-thinking ways. So I think the benefit of time is everything, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Sorry, Jonathan, and you mentioned onboarding, and onboarding is really, really critical. And again, going back to my own experiences and things that we got wrong, during our kind of peak period of growth, we were taking on 20 clients a month, and it's a really administrative process, and technology will help, but you can't get over. Somebody just asked a question around money laundering and risk management assessments and everything else. It's really time consuming, and we're professionals, and we have to get that stuff right, don't we? It's really important we get that right. But equally, onboarding is the first impression a client gets of you as a firm, and there's so much to do in terms of HMRC authorities and everything else. So anything that we can do to make that experience more pleasurable for the client, more efficient, has got to be great. And Emma's question, does the onboarding clients include money laundering, risk assessment, and so on, as well as letters of engagement? How does that work with you guys?
Yeah, so the answer to that in a nutshell, Emma, is yes. So we have inbuilt anti-money laundering checks and a risk assessment process. We're all built within AccountancyManager. The risk assessment one, we actually we worked with a former HMRC tax investigator on the risk assessments. So he's given us guidance into the questions we should be asking, and so it's really comprehensive. And the fact that the AML checks are in the system as well, of course, is just a huge benefit. And again, like you're saying, it's a consistent approach, and it makes the onboarding process really it's just efficient for users, to be for clients, to be honest with you, because when they coming onto a new accountant, they don't want to feel like the barrier. Okay, yeah, we're going to give you this great service, we're going to use Xero, we're going to move it into the cloud, bang, here's load of paper, here's your letter of engagement, can you sign this to send it back? It's an inconsistent approach, and you want that onboarding process to seem really slick for the prospect. Otherwise they're going to think, oh, this was a nightmare, I'm just going to stay where I am.
Yeah.
Same with professional clearance as well. Like, last thing you want to be doing is chasing the prospect, to be chasing their accountants if you don't hear back from them, that sort of thing. So
yeah, and I think I mean, just jumping around again a little bit, I mean, I'm sure we've got lots of people on this session that are AccountancyManager users, and I think it's really important that when we buy into a piece of technology, that we really make sure that we stay on top of developments. You guys, I'm sure, are adding new product features, new functionality, new tools into the product the whole time, and it's really important, isn't it, that we continue to look at what we do and not just accept, right, we've got AccountancyManager now, and this is the way we're going to work, because you guys are developing, you're improving the product the whole time.
Yeah.
What should users of your product already be doing to make sure that they're using all the functionality and so on, Jonathan?
So it's taught to us. So we literally only just sent about last month the user satisfaction survey. And in the survey, we're asking users, right, imagine your perfect practice management software. What does it have that AccountancyManager doesn't currently have? Now, we've always done this. We've always looked to take on user feedback, and we're always looking to develop the product. I started with AccountancyManager back in March 2020, just before the pandemic. And at that time, we didn't integrate with Xero, we didn't integrate with QuickBooks, we didn't integrate with Sage, we did have an integration with Free Agent. But since that time, we've obviously launched integration with Xero, Sage, QuickBooks, Zapier, and Go Proposal. And in addition to that, we've built absolutely loads of new functionality that have all been requested by our users. So our roadmap is all driven by user feedback and user requests. And of course, in my capacity, I'm asked quite a lot, well, what is it about AccountancyManager? What's different about AccountancyManager from all the other providers out there? Well, the big thing that we always push is the journey. It's the journey that our users are on with us as well. And they buy into the journey, and we listen to their feedback. They know when they send us an email saying, can you please enhance your workflow, for instance? We've read that, we've gone, yes, okay, that's a valid point. And we are currently working on our workflow elements of AccountancyManager to make that even better. And we're quite transparent about our roadmap as well. Back in January, we published an article on AccountancyWeb, which was our roadmap. And at the time, we had quite a lot of people come back to us and say, well, that was a bold move, wasn't it? And we were like, well, we're very confident that we're going to fulfill everything on our roadmap. For us, it's not a risk to tell people what we're doing. If our big USP is that our users are on the journey with us, then we've got to tell people what we're going to be doing.
Yeah. And I think the key point here is that obviously we all remember the days of kind of desktop software where you get an update once a quarter or once a year or whatever. And we know that with the technology we're using now and the SaaS products and cloud products, the improvements and the tweaks and the new functionalities are added constantly, and it's just we need to make sure that we look to stay up to date and so on. So Thank you for the comments on that, Jonathan. So we're heading towards the end of the session. If anybody has any final questions, do drop those into the Q&A. And thank you to listening in the background. That's been frantically answering the questions. So as we wrap up, we are. I always like to make sure that we focus on some key takeaways. So some of the key points that we've raised during the session here, both Jonathan and myself. So to recap on some things that I think are important for you to take away, is firstly, really think hard about the things that only you can do. So once you've done that, you can then start to identify what are the things that I can delegate, what are the things that we can look to automate. So often I work with firm owners, particularly who are really, really reluctant to let go of administrative processes. And your time is valuable. You need to be focusing on the things that you need to do to grow the business and service clients at the best of your ability. Think about process mapping. It's a really valuable way to think about what you do. Jonathan talked about the onboarding process and printing letters and sending engagement letters in the post and everything else. Map that stuff out. What's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps that you go through, and start to look for opportunities where there is duplication, where there are things that you're spending time doing it and technology will do it far more efficiently, far more effectively. Jonathan's mentioned the AccountancyManager case studies. There's lots of them, and there's some really valuable learnings in there in terms of the thing I really like about the accounting profession right now is we're so collaborative. There's so much sharing of best practice and knowledge, and use things like those case studies to really look at what firms are doing, how they've deployed AccountancyManager, and what the physical benefits are to them. Recycle admin time into higher value work and greater client experiences. As everybody starts using the same technology, we all look alike, and the only way we're going to differentiate what we do is by delivering better client experiences. So I talk about the digital firm. The next evolution of that for me is what I call a human firm. How do we get really, really humanistic in everything that we do? And finally, intelligent technology will enhance your practice. And this means giving you the ability to grow, giving you greater value in your practice should you come to exit at some point, giving your clients better value. Jonathan, anything to add on those key takeaways?
I suppose the whole purpose of today's session is to talk just about practice management, to talk about and try and share with the audience about that there is better ways of working perhaps out there, and to try and think about your current ways that you are doing admin within the practice. I've not tried to massively push AccountancyManager. Of course, it's inevitable I'm going to draw on our features and functionality to articulate some of these points that I'm trying to get across. But I want the users or the attendees to go away and look at what they're currently doing and challenge yourself and think, do I still need to do this? Do I still, as a human being, need to do this email? Is there a better way that I could perhaps work out there? And I hope that by having a look at the AccountancyManager website and have a look at some of our functionality, you might find the answer is yes to some of those questions.
Excellent, thank you, Jonathan. And finally, if you are not yet using AccountancyManager, the team have put together an exclusive offer for you based on the session today. So do get in touch, Jonathan. Jonathan, go.
Sorry, on that, if you could just put it there, when you are signing up, there is a "Where did you hear about us?" box. If you put App Advisory Plus or the code app21, then I'll know you've come from today's session, and then we'll definitely give you that discounted rate, because it's a discounted rate from £39 a user per month, and we're going to offer you £29 a user per month plus VAT for the first 12 months. So so if you could, when you sign up, make sure you put App Advisory Plus or App21 in the "Where did you hear about us?" box, then I'll make sure you get that offer.
Perfect. And Jonathan, if anybody wants to reach out to you with any questions that we haven't been able to answer for them on the session, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can reach me on email at jonathan.stobart@accountancymanager.com, or reach me on LinkedIn. If you search Jonathan Stobart, it's Stobart, just one B, just like the lorries. You'll no doubt find me.
Excellent. Perfect. And that wraps us up. Look at that, bang on 11:15.
Perfect.
So thank you very, very much, everybody, for joining us today. Hope it was an informative session. I've certainly enjoyed the conversation with Jonathan. So thank you, Jonathan, for taking the time. Thanks to the rest of the Accountancy Manager team for the help, and for listening in the background, who has done a sterling job answering lots of technical questions. Jonathan and the team will be very happy to kind of pick up on anything else that has come out of the session. If you need some guidance and support on any of the features in Accountancy Manager, they'll be very happy to do that and give you the support that you need. So again, thank you for joining us. Hope it's been useful. And thanks again, Jonathan, and have a good day, everybody. Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks very much, Will, for the opportunity, and thanks everyone for tuning in and listening to us today.
Great. Take care, everyone.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.